I think I missed that previously. Are downloads better than streaming, or are they like, how do you differentiate downloads and streaming?
Okay, so this typically comes from the what do you call the classic Wikipedia definition of what is a podcast, right? Podcasts are seen as something you download and listen later offline, uh, or anytime a new episode has come, it's loaded onto your podcatcher app. The way we look at it is within our app, there is you can stream online or you can download it and listen offline without the internet connectivity. So in India, I would recommend that listening offline is always a good experience because we go through flaky internet. Podcast is so much associated with commute, right? So download is kind of an important metrics there.
Great. I was actually going to type my question, but I thought I'd just ask it here. Sreeraman, how are you seeing in terms of, like you kind of partially answered this, but vernacular versus Indian, right? How do you see the split on Aawaz? Because I think English was very recently that you started onboarding, right, on the platform?
Yeah. So Aawaz went live on Jan 2019, right? We had about 100 hours of content when we went live. And a year later, this Jan, we went live with English. So Aawaz is currently in two languages, English and Hindi, which is what makes it about 500 plus hours of original content from our side, right? So we don't yet have other Indian languages right now, right? So for us, Hindi is kind of one of the biggest spoken language in India, and we want to get to a very critical mass there, learn everything we can from Hindi market, right, and then replicate those success in other market, right. And it also takes a lot of efforts when you're an original company to launch in a new language. If I launch with just 3-4 shows in Tamil or Marathi, the audience will be left kind of high and dry after they finish those 3 shows. Yeah, so all markets are super promising. I would not write off any market, at least not the big 12 uh, languages of the country, right? So it, it depends on if you are able to deliver to the sensitivities of your listeners, right? Understanding just because Tamil Nadu and Karnataka are neighbors doesn't mean the sensitivities are same. I'm saying this because I'm a Tamilian born and raised in Bangalore, so I understand the nuances and the sensibilities of a Kannadiga versus a Tamilian. Right? It's completely different. What they like, what they prefer is completely different. So it's always good to launch in one language that you are damn good in, which is where your strength lies. Learn from it, and then maybe find colleagues and partners and professionals from other language, and then go live.
Okay. Naga, do you have any specific questions for the other guests, other speakers?
I think there was just one. Oh, 1 second. I'm just opening that up. I think there was one question for Vignesh for how do you handle payments on Turtle? I think that was one of the questions that we had left unanswered before.
Hey everyone.
Yeah, Vignesh, we can hear you.
Yeah, sure. So with respect to payments, so what we have done is that the moment you sign up on you need to provide your bank details, and automatically we have a verification process. Once that is verified, you can choose the payout cycle. It could be at what point, at which date you want the payout to be done. So you can set the cycle, and accordingly, the payments happen as and when, you set up the engagements and it get approved, and then as and when the transaction happens on that specific cycle, that what you call payment will be given to the creator.
Got it. And I think now that's all the questions that were there for Vignesh. I think Sreeraman, before you sign off, just wanted to thank you for your very nuanced and technical / business centric take on how to look at the world from a monetization perspective, from someone who's been doing this for a while. The knowledge and the insight that you have in selling this kind of content is very evident from the conversation. So just like to place on record my thanks for taking the time and also for coming here, and also wanted to thank all of the speakers once again, Kartik, Vignesh, and Sreeraman for doing this and for helping us in conducting this event. we'll now be moving on to all of the questions as well. So we'll just be moving there. One of the questions for all the speakers was, what is your favorite mic and any other tool that you have? This is from Karanveer.
I think Kartik just responded on the
Oh,
chat
sorry,
saying,
I guess,
yeah.
yeah. I mean,
Go ahead.
this is such a open question, and I'm not, I'm much more on the tooling, providing the creators the tooling side. So, but yeah, and Chavi's and some of the others are probably much better at this. I like things that are simple. I put out a mic. I specifically said Rode into USB because I think it can avoid a preamp and things like that. But again, not the best expert here. I'll leave it to the experts to reply to that, the creators.
Thank you. One more question, Naga, was would you recommend creating different sub-brands podcasts for different genres or building around one personal brand? It's open to any of the speakers.
I can just say that from my experience from India dealing with IBM, they specifically have they have single shows that are recorded in multiple languages. I don't know, not too many, but a few, and they put them out as two separate feeds, clearly marking them as English and Hindi. Was that the question? Am I getting that question right, Saif?
So basically, somebody was asking if she can create. I think it was Preeti, if I'm not wrong. She was asking if she can create multiple. If it's better to create multiple podcasts or just have them all under one personal brand, like split it up by genre into multiple podcasts.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that if you have thematic or language or any type of sort of differentiator, then I would say, yeah, please split them into different shows. I'm assuming that those differences, either theme or genre or language or whatever it is targeted automatically at different audiences. I think Sreeraman specifically spoke about Star Plus versus urban centric English versus Hindi. So I think by that logic, I would say absolutely split them into different shows. They have different audience targeting and so on and so forth.
Great, thanks. And I think some of the other participants are also kind of concurring to that. Sriram, one more for you.
Yeah.
I think Sriraman is hot right now. How do you manage to get podcasts that are in regional languages QC'd? And yeah, that's the one for you.
Okay, so see, it's about like I strongly believe that you should start with the things that you have expertise in. For example, I don't even speak fluent Hindi, but we launched with Hindi, right? So the idea is not about. The idea is not just about what do you call doing multiple things at once, right? It's about finding the right professionals or the right talent or the right team and doing one or two things really, really well so that your audience start appreciating you. So QC well means if you, I don't know why the QC question comes. What I mean by that is, or what I'm understanding here is, you are trying to work with a vendor or a partner and they send you anything and you're not sure if what they're saying is right. If that is the scene, that could be pretty risky. You might want to work with a thorough professional on that. Or if it's a different question, please ask again.
I think that's what I kind of interpreted as well. Because if you're not quite, if your team is not quite conversant with some of the languages you might work with, like how do you adhere to the quality, right? If you're working with vendors. So I think you answered a lot of that. There's a question for Kartik as well. Are you able to add markers for banner ads to appear when host reads appear within a podcast?
Yeah, so short answer, yes. This is related to a product that we're still not yet, it's in beta. Essentially it's a campaign manager related question. So If there are you know if there are specific points in which the ad needs to be added, we mark them on the audio, we show them in the same interactive timeline, so that you're also able to augment the ad with the clickable relevant banner, because they now are being sent as a package. It's an audio ad plus a clickable banner. And then this is related to a campaign manager, because if you don't have static ad inventory that your direct ad sales team has sold from within the publisher, you are using a third party or a dynamic or a programmatic use case, in which case those buckets are being filled either on the fly or at delivery. So you would mark those points saying, I'm open to having an audio ad at this point. You could have it based on targeting, retargeting, keywords. We automate a lot of that. So it's still not in public, but absolutely, the answer is yes.
Great. Are there more questions? Please ask away. It's a good opportunity. Looks like some of them will connect directly with the speakers for conversation, which is also cool. And Karan, we definitely do connect with Chavi. Anybody who is looking to get to that level up, that next level in terms of audio production and all of that, do reach out to Chavi. She runs a lot of workshops in different cities as well. So if she's in your city, definitely be a part of those workshops. Otherwise, she's left her email and contact in the chat box to reach out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just shared my screen from the earlier question, just to show something that's in beta, still not polished, but if you can see it, that's an ad that's marked very clearly, and it has these programmable pins and the attribution built into it for the interactivity as well as for the assignment. So if that helps. I just wanted to make a quick point. I was looking through the earlier questions, and I think Sreeraman touched this point about diaspora. Again, as we are Adori, and we are very humble to say we are learning India as we go. Like IVM, the IVM piece, obviously I'm sensitive about sharing data, but it's amazing like how large a percentage, 50% I would say, or close to 50% of their listening comes from outside India, and close to 50% of their listening comes on Apple devices. So that tells you the potential of targeting, of ad insertion, of CPMs that are different, of dynamic, all of this stuff. So just I wanted to sort of that thought came to me when Sreeraman talked about diaspora.
Yeah. And Sreeraman, if I could ask, because you'd been touching that a lot of listening in tier 2, tier 3 type of cities is also picking up these days. Just going by the listening patterns, is there a way to determine what probably might be the listening experience? Like when are they, like what's the use case of when they're listening?
Yeah, so context drives the consumption. So typically the podcast has been an extension of radio, as we call it as drive time, right? The morning hours or the commute hours. We did see that as a pattern, but our programming is such, for example, in the morning we upload 3 fresh content, which is less than a minute or 2 long, which is a news, like a news bulletin, Aaj Ka Suvichar, which is like a good message, and there is also today's special, right? All of this in Hindi. We see a good amount of people listening to this first thing in the morning, right? So then through the day, what we see is bite-sized content like jokes, which are 20 seconds long, 30 seconds long. We see listenership for that intermittently or sporadic through the day, and then towards the evening, we see content like stories that gets a lot of listenership. I'm assuming people are tired of their screens and want to tune into the story at evenings. And also children's story do well in the evening, like Dadi Ma Ki Kahaniya and Panchatantra and those kind of stories. This being said, we also see what do you call, even flattening, like the flattening curve is the flavor of the season. Yeah, so we are seeing a curve flatten from only drive time, morning time through the day now, right? And I'm not sure if this will be the pattern after the lockdown, but good to see it's through the day, right? That's one. If that helps, if this answer helps.
Yeah, definitely. A question from Pranav for Sreeraman as you're still on. Does Aawaz do any reach, listens, downloads, benchmarking for its shows with other Indian shows in the market? If yes, how does Aawaz go about this to judge reach for shows?
Okay, so one of the things we are really trying to do is work with all the big consulting companies, audio measurement companies, and who not, so that we can create a benchmark, just like how BARC, the Broadcast Audience Research Council, or MRUC, the Media Research User Council, benchmarks and gives you a moving measurement of all the TV channels watched, newspapers read, and radio heard, RAM ratings. We are trying to do something like that for podcast and on-demand audio. Currently, there's only the Kantar and Wheaton study that's there. We will, like I said, I am personally talking to every one of them, so we get a level playing field and a benchmark. But so far, I do not personally benchmark or talk about my colleagues, peers, competition, or anyone else in the industry when we go out to sell to a brand. We only stick to what we can deliver for a brand when I ask for sponsorship.
Okay, great. Another question for you, Sreeraman. Are you seeing long form or short form content doing better? Aman, next time we'll have you in the spotlight. We need to know everything about JioSavan.
Yeah. So Aman is
Yeah, absolutely.
all the insights there.
Yeah, Aman
Cost.
is.
Yeah, Aman, you're asking about cost. I'll send you my financials.
I'm
Balance.
joking, but no, serious question, Sreeraman. I'd be keen because a lot of times there is this. I don't know if this is a wrong notion or people tend to think, right? India does long form work. I think only short form might work. How long should my episode be? So that's one of the primary questions. A lot of especially podcasters starting out newly ask. So, what has been your experience? Does long form run?
I will answer it. So in Aawaz, there is a 2A rule, adequate and accurate. Okay. So any content we go out to create, all the producers, everybody in the team knows, because the guest or the producer asks for how long should this content be, right? We do not have a template of how long it should be. What we tell them is, look, if you can adequately cover it and accurately cover it. So it might be done in a minute, it could be done in 19 minutes or 42 minutes. It should be accurate to begin with, and then talk adequately on that subject. That's one. If it is becoming too long, break it down so that you make nano-sized, or address the different pointers in that. So this is for non-fiction, right? So for fiction, uh, also on non-fiction, one of the metric we try to follow, because we are appealing to the business CXO level audience decision makers, is insights per minute, right? So do not give gyan and gas and waste listeners time, because that's how we end up with a 2.5 hour long podcast, which is a rant. So we are super mindful to not rant on a podcast, right? So we try to do it as insights per minute. If you listen to it for 5 minutes, is there at least 10 takeaways or 15 takeaways, right, from a 5 minute long podcast? So that's fiction. Non-fiction for you. Fiction, the format or the script determines the length. For example, stand-up comedy with Hindi stand-up comedians that we have with Rahman Khan and Sunil Pal, there's something as long as 20 seconds, 30 seconds each, because they are really, really tiny, bullet-sized, bite-sized content. And we have discourses on Bhagavad Gita that is 50 minutes long, 40 minutes long. We see listenership for all of this. But of course, the jokes have a higher take. But those who are listening to a 40-minute long Bhagavad Gita discourse, they complete it for the 40 minutes because they're highly involved in what they're listening. So they knew that they're clicking on a 40-minute long episode and they are highly interested in it. So you can't just look at short form jokes does well, then I should only be a comedy platform, not a multiple content platform, right? So the content type dictates the duration. So please be mindful of that, and not just a template of long, short, in length.
Okay, great. So last question here, and a very deep one, a very profound one for all the three speakers. So I guess, Kartik, you can start off with this. And it's a question from Nikhil. Nikhil also has a great podcast called Get Out. So check that out. But here's the question, right? I know you've created excellent platforms, but why do you feel podcasts should be used for monetization the way audio medium has evolved for radio? Have you observed whether the idea of making money off podcasts dilutes the essence of conversations or the content itself? So it looks like we've come a full circle now. Loaded question to end it with. So Kartik, yeah, over to you.
Yeah, so monetization is one of the four pillars that we think will help creators create more content. In the end, it's whether they're doing it as a hobby or in their garage on Saturday and Sunday, I don't think it takes away the seriousness with which they create it. They may want money or reputation or data or engagement or storytelling, whatever their purpose is, primary or secondary impact. But I do believe that we, at least as a philosophy, want to build things that help the creator. I just believe empowering them, if they especially want to move from hobby to full time, that's a journey. I think people have to put bread on the table. So I don't think that it has. His particular question was, it does not dilute the essence of the conversation or content. But again, to Sreeraman's example, beer commercial during devotional, I think we can do smarter things than that, and be very respectful of context and the right kind of partnering. Asking for listener support, buy me a coffee, all kinds of models are there. And if you don't want to use monetization and just you have other forms of impact, sure. But I don't think it dilutes the content. Other than poor ad insertion, I think should be fine.
Mm-hmm. Thanks, Kartik. Vignesh, do you want to add something?
I think Vignesh is not there. We can maybe move on to
no problem.
Sreeraman.
Sreeraman, would you want to close this off with that
Sure. So,
question?
Look, if you are creating avant-garde, something super passionate for your own self and for other, like a small clique of audience, then please do it. We call it as, there's a lingo for it. It's called as no-sumer media, right? There is no consumers for it, right? It was done just for you to kind of take notes, right? Like the Anne Frank's diary or Mahatma Gandhi's My Story of Experiments with Truth. It was not written to be published and made books into, but it came out to be that way, right? So it's called no sumer media. It's done purely for passion. There is no, is there anyone asking us to make money off podcasts of such long tail or such avant-garde content? I don't think so. But if I look at it that way, I will lose my job. So will 30 of my team, right? So it's the choice that we have, and I think everybody respects each one of it. So yes.
Fantastic. I think that's a very heavy question for us to conclude. But thank you so much, Sreeraman. Thank you, Kartik, and thank you, Vignesh, for your time and insights. As we conclude, please note that if you need anything, you can get in touch with any of us, and we can put you in touch with the speakers. The email IDs of all these people were also shown during the presentations. We can also share that with you. We will be sharing this as a YouTube recording, and it will also be shared as podcasts on Aawaz.com. Thanks to Sreeraman and team. So I think that's something that is coming up as well. So in terms of the next meetup, we might have something coming in maybe June or July sometime, and we will make sure that you're all informed. There's just one announcement that or a thank you message that we just wanted to share from our friends at Soundboard Media, from Shandy, who runs Biker Radio Broadcast. He's part of the United Nations Task Force against COVID-19. So he wanted to thank all of the podcasters who chipped in with sharing their recording and editing capabilities, so that they can create content for medical workers, in Kannada, Hindi, Tamil, and all of these different languages. After this, we'll also include the thank you mail in the email blast that we send out. In case anyone else is interested to spare some time and resources for the ongoing fight, you can reach out to Shandy, and I'll also share his email ID on on the chat here. And I think the chat is just like blowing up right now, but we'll share all of this with everyone. Again, thanks to Shiv Guru and team from the Software People Stories for sharing their Pro Zoom license. I can't say this enough, but I keep thinking that we are standing on the shoulders of giants, because we are, and that is the kind of support that we've always got from this community. So thank you everyone for making it, and for making sure that we're just one group together, and we're in this journey of podcasting. So thanks everyone, and until the next time, and for the next edition of this event, this is Naga signing off on behalf of O2 Pod Collective. Have a wonderful weekend.
Thank you all. Thank you so
Thanks,
much,
Naga. Thanks, Sai.
everybody.
Thanks, Kartik. Thanks, Vignesh.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank you,
everyone of you.
Sriram. Thank you, Vignesh. Bye, guys.
Bye bye. Thanks.